Friday Night Live. I didn't even realize it was Friday. I've been just working on some stuff all day long, and about an hour ago, I guess, I said, "Oh, it's Friday, so I need to prepare what I'm going to talk about on Friday Night Live." And I decided to bring in something that comes up in every single one of my classes, and that there seems to be a lot of misunderstanding about, especially for our federal employees that are under FERS or the Federal Employees Retirement System. And that is the difference between traditional TSP and Roth TSP. A lot of times people will come into the classroom and they will ask me, but what about if I'm doing Roth, then can I also do TSP or something like that? TSP is TSP. This is the Thrift Savings Program. It functions similarly, and I want to stress that word. It is not. It functions similarly to the way that a 401k would function for a private sector employer. The employer puts money in there, so does the federal government. The employee puts money in there, so do our federal employees. We decide what we want to invest in. We decide when we leave how we want to take that money out. We've got a whole lot of different things that are available to us. And since 2012, which is when the law passed, we actually saw it come in a couple years after that, when the payroll offices figured out how to make it work, we get to choose when we want to pay our taxes. So under TSP, and we can think of that as this big umbrella, right? TSP, the Thrift Savings Program. Under that, we have 15 different things that we can invest in. 10 of those are life cycle funds, and then we've got 5 standalone funds. We can invest in any or all of those. But under that umbrella, we can also decide whether we are doing traditional TSP or Roth TSP. They're still both TSP. One of the things that we think about, so it's a bit more complicated than this. I was talking to my husband about it earlier today because he heard me talking to a client and he said, well, wait a minute, I thought it was just this. I'm like, no, there's a lot more to it. One thing that I think about when I decide if I'm doing traditional TSP or Roth TSP is the tax consequences. If I do traditional TSP, then like a traditional IRA, I pay no taxes now. So everything that I'm having taken out of my paychecks is going into my thrift account and there's no taxes paid. But later on, when I pull money out of my TSP, then I do have to pay taxes on what I put in there, what it's happened to make in the market, whatever I'm getting from the government for the 1% and the matching contributions as well. Traditional TSP, like a traditional IRA, is taxed later. Roth TSP, like a Roth IRA, is taxed now. So one thing that I think about is, where do I believe that I'm going to be in the most advantageous tax situation? So the client that I was talking to today was very concerned about what her taxes are today. She's making a good sum of money. She doesn't have any write-offs for taxes, and she really doesn't like the amount that she's paying in taxes now. So for her, doing traditional would mean that she's going to get more of a tax break on her taxes now. But it will also mean that later on, after she retires and she starts pulling money from her TSP, that she's going to have to pay the taxes that are due at that point. Now, and this is just one example, again, there's a lot that goes into it, but if I am, let's say, on the front end of my career, maybe I've been working for 5 years or so, especially if I've got a couple of kids, I've got a mortgage, I'm not making a whole lot of money right now because I'm just starting out, I am likely in the lowest tax bracket that I'm going to be in for a while, because as I raise the kids and pay down the mortgage and get promotions, my taxes are going to be going up. So if I do the Roth, I pay today, versus if I do traditional, I pay tomorrow. One thing that I think about, okay? Another thing that I may want to think about is the potential for tax-free growth in my thrift account. If I am willing to pay the taxes today and put the money in there to the Roth, I invest it in whatever I choose. If two things are both true, I don't pull Roth money. I can do traditional, but I don't pull Roth money until I am at least 59 and a half, and I don't pull Roth money until that has sat there for at least 5 years. And it's 5 years from when I start doing the Roth, not 5 years from this contribution and this one and this one and this one. It's 5 years from the beginning. As long as it's been there for 5 years and I'm 59 and a half, then anything the account has made is tax free. I paid the taxes on my, we'll call it principal, right? My contribution, my principal in the beginning, and all the growth is tax free as long as both of those things are true and these earnings are qualified. That can be huge. That's definitely something to be aware of. Another thing that you might want to be aware of is that the Internal Revenue Service does impose something called RMD, or Required Minimum Distribution, when we are 72. It used to be 70 and a half, but that law changed in December of 2019. So when we're 72, they look at our account balance in the traditional IRAs, 401ks, TSP accounts, and they divide that balance by our life expectancy. The number they get is our RMD, or required minimum distribution. We've got to start pulling at least that amount, could be more, can't be less, and we've got to start paying the taxes. Now, what if I'm 72 and I don't have a plan for that money and I don't want to pull that money? Too bad. You got to start doing the RMD, not cashing out. Again, I want to be super clear on this. People think they have to close their TSP. You don't. You've got to start drawing. But I don't want to. Well, it's only the traditional money that you have to start drawing. So one additional benefit of doing the Roth might be that now I'm not going to have to pull that money for RMD. I don't have to pull that money at all. I can let the Roth sit there for the rest of my life. I've got to start pulling the RMD from the traditional. So I think that's all really important stuff to know. But here's what I specifically wanted to talk about. Federal employees that came in after 1983 are under a program called FERS, the Federal Employees Retirement System, and we get an automatic 1% from the federal government every 2 weeks into our thrift, whether we put in any of our own money or not. In addition, we get matching contributions based upon what we are contributing up to 5% of our biweekly paycheck. Many FERS employees believe in order to get any match from the government, they must put at least 5% of their own contribution into traditional, and anything else they can put in Roth. But that is not true. That's a misunderstanding. So on the screen here, I have just dropped in one of the pictures that I use from class, which is a box. And in this box, we have traditional and Roth money. If we signed up to do the Roth, we can. It's an option. It's not required. I could have traditional and Roth money in this box, but there's a steel wall in the middle of this box. Now that is impermeable, which means when I start doing the Roth and the wall is built, any money that's sitting in there at the time stays right where it is. It doesn't flow through that steel wall. It's got to stay on the traditional side of the box. Anything that I'm putting in from now on could go on the Roth side or traditional, or I can do both at the same time. I can put 100% of my contribution onto the Roth side of the box because I'm contributing to the box as a whole. Doesn't matter that it's Roth, but the box, I am eligible for the matching contributions. But any money that I get from the government, both from the past and in the future, goes traditional. See, that's the misunderstanding. People think that they've got to put 5% of their own money in traditional to get the match. You don't. You've got to put money into the box. You can do 100% Roth if you want to. You will be eligible for matching, but the matching will be traditional. Okay? The cap on the box doesn't change either. So the most that we can contribute for 2020 is $19,500 for, this is called regular contribution. So it's anybody in any kind of work, and it doesn't matter if they were hired yesterday or they're going to retire from their job tomorrow. We can put $19,500 in there. Has to be done through payroll deduction. Additionally, if we are going to turn 50 or older this year, we don't have to be 50 yet. My birthday could be on December 31st. But if we are going to turn 50 or older this year, we are planning to max out the regular by the end of the year, and we sign up to do catch up, then I could put another $6,500 of my own money into my TSP. So a couple of things that I've noticed that people misunderstand with this. Number one, the $19,500 plus the $6,500, if people are 50 or older, that is from the person. The person. It does not include the 1% from the government. It does not include the matching from the government. That's on top of this potential $26,000. There seems to be a lot of misunderstanding about that. And again, because people are viewing TSP as one thing and Roth as something completely different, they think that if they start doing the Roth, that they could put extra money into their thrift. This box has a cap on it, and that cap is the $19,500 regular plus the $6,500 Roth. So doing Roth doesn't do anything except build a wall in your box, but it doesn't change your limit. It doesn't change your 1% from the government. It doesn't change your matching contributions. It changes your tax consequences, and it builds that wall in the middle of your box. So hopefully that's really helpful. The other thing that I would like to say, because I got a couple more minutes, I try to limit these to 20, but I've got a couple more minutes. Another thing that I want people to know is that the Roth TSP option, while it functions like a Roth IRA, is not a Roth IRA. And traditional TSP, while it functions like a traditional IRA, is not an IRA. This is an eligible employer plan. Now, one of the big differences is, in order for me to do a Roth or even a traditional IRA, then there are income restrictions. Some people make too much money to be able to contribute to a Roth IRA or even a traditional. And again, there are a lot of people that don't think that there's a limit to that one, but there definitely is. So for this year, and I'm looking at the numbers if you see me looking down, for this year, 2020, if my adjusted gross income for a single tax filer was less than 139,000, or a married couple filing a joint tax return was under 206,000, then yes, we can do a Roth IRA. It has to be outside the government though. And if I do a Roth IRA, because I do make the amount that's under the limit, then I could put an extra $6,000 into that Roth IRA. Didn't change the cap for TSP because the cap is what it is for the box overall. But if I'm qualified to do a Roth IRA, that is an extra $6,000 that I could contribute, plus an extra $1,000 for a total of $7,000 if I'm 50 or older. As far as the traditional IRA goes, that too is capped at $6,000. But if I am a single and I file a single tax return, my income is between $65,000 and $75,000. I can do something traditional. It's got to be under $65,000 to do the full $6,000 contribution. And if I make more than $75,000, I can't do anything. And that limit for married filing joint, if I'm under 104, I can do the full $6,000 contribution. Between 104 and 124, I can do something. If I make more than 124, married filing joint, I can't do anything traditional. TSP is not an IRA. There's no income restriction at all. A lot of federal employees, again, will tell me, well, I can't do Roth TSP. Why not? I make too much money. There's no such thing. Roth TSP does not have income restrictions. Roth IRA, yes. Traditional IRA, yes. Traditional TSP, no. Roth TSP, no. They're two completely different animals. Hey, Carolyn. So good to see you here. Great information, Carolyn says. Thank you. Thank you. again, I didn't even know what I was going to talk about until I hopped on here tonight, but I taught a class, not yesterday, the day before yesterday, and this question comes up all the time about the TSP, so I figured maybe it would be a good topic to bring into the Facebook Live as well. I'm glad that it's helpful. Thank you for giving me that feedback. That means a lot to me. Okay, so if you are catching it on the replay, if you have additional questions, please don't hesitate to drop those into the comments. I would love to hear your feedback, and I would love to know if there are questions that you have that you would like for me to talk about in additional streams. If you found this helpful, tell me. If you have additional questions because of what I said here, tell me that as well. I'm going to hop off. I'm going to wish you a great Friday night, and I hope that your weekend is amazing. I'll be back next week. Take care.